So I want to talk about how the nervous system acts as a boiler. So a boiler, if you think of a boiler kind of in your chest, and your nervous system sort of represents this boiler. Now, the nervous system is designed to be active, right? We want to be able to engage in the things that we want to engage in life. So increasing activation, that's our sympathetic nervous system or our fight or flight. And this is supposed to go up and down throughout our day. We also have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and repair system or rest and digest system. And these systems are in balance, and as we move throughout our day, we want to be up for a big presentation, to record a video, to have an engaging workout, something along those lines. But then when we're resting, we want to be able to come back down again. Now, if the nervous system is like a boiler, if we think of the pressure built inside as the activation of the nervous system, as activation of how the nervous system is going to deal with all of these things that are going on, then we want to be able to create some pressure, right? That's the purpose of a boiler. The purpose of the boiler is to create this pressure and this heat, right? So the nervous system does the same thing. But when we think of a boiler, things can go wrong if we don't have the right situation. So inside a boiler, there's some liquid, right? That liquid, water in the case of a real boiler, and in the case of a nervous system, we're talking about the stored emotions and traumas and things that sensitize the nervous system. Then there's the heat that goes into that. So the water gets heated. The heat is representing the sympathetic activation as a whole. So looking at things that are current stressors, things that activate you, things that kind of keep you on high alert. So if you combine water or liquid with heat, then that creates pressure inside the boiler, right? As the water or the liquid heats up, the gas expands, and you basically have a lot of pressure. Now, boilers have release valves for a very specific reason and an important reason. The release valve is that when there's too much pressure, then there's somewhere for that pressure to go. So if your nervous system doesn't have a good release valve, that pressure builds, what's going to happen is the boiler is going to blow. Now, the boiler blows as the purpose of this is to create a warning, to say there's too much going on, there's too much pressure, there's too much that it can handle. And so it will blow in symptoms. And sometimes these symptoms are pain, chronic pain, sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's anxiety or panic. All of these things can be created by a nervous system that's boiling too hot and has too much pressure. So we want to be able to release that pressure. And that release valve is the self-care that we can do. And so we can create things to actually train the nervous system to come down from sympathetic and go into rest and repair. We can also create the situation where we're reducing the overall heat and we're reducing that overall activation. We can also do some work on the stored trauma and the stored emotions that haven't been released or processed appropriately. So if we put all those things together, it represents sort of a well-rounded way of looking at the nervous system and taking it from, if I'm going to try to heal the nervous system, we want to try and reduce the pressure in the boiler. So we need a release valve in self-care. We need to reduce the heat, try and figure out ways to cope with our activation that doesn't come down, that doesn't know how to come down. And it's a really good idea to work on some of that stored emotions and stored trauma to really get that full recovery and full relief. And I see this with my clients and use this analogy all the time, whether we're talking about chronic pain, long COVID, chronic fatigue, brain fog, functional neurological symptoms, disorders, these things, lots of things like that. So all of these respond in a very similar way. I hope this was useful to you, and please reach out if you have questions or you want to talk about this in more detail.